All right, folks. Hey, how's it going? Chuck Holton here, and we're live from Panama tonight. I got home about 1 o'clock this morning after a grueling 48 hours of travel from Israel to Dubai to New York to Panama, and then driving home from the airport is another couple hours. So it was a long night last night. But made it home okay, got some rest, and we've been just sort of, I've been just sort of taking it easy today. Got a few things done, but not much. Let's see if I can fix that camera up a little bit. So I am glad to be home, only here for a few days, and then I will be off again on another trip. I wanted to start at the outset and let you know that that anything that we raise on today's podcast is going to get sent to One Tired Mama. She reached out to me the other day. Her dad had a massive heart attack and is now unable to work for the time being until he can recover sufficiently. Her mom's got some medical problems too, and so they are struggling as anybody would. And this is the kind of thing that when friends find out about a need like this, friends come around and actually do something to help. And so we're going to dedicate anything that we can raise on this on today's podcast. And I would love to see us get her everything that she needs. She's started a Give, Send, Go account. I've pinned it to the top of the chat, so you can click on it right there. It's in white on my computer, and it says, everyone send some love to One Tired Mama. You can click there, and you can go and donate. It'll go directly to her. You don't have to send it to me. Send it to her through that link, and then she'll get all of it, and YouTube won't take any out or anything like that. So please be generous and send your thank you for all the hard work that One Tired Mama has done in helping to keep us troll-free for the last several months. And so really appreciate all the work that she's done, and we want you to help her out, and we're going to help her out as well. So join us in that, would you? I'm all sweaty. I just got done working out. So let's talk about what's going on in Israel. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of just some of the highlights of the news from Israel over the last 24 hours, and then I'll get into the topic of today's discussion, which is Sinwar's secret plan. So just to sort of wrap everything up, in Israel over the last 24 hours, Hezbollah has fired more than 60 rockets into the north, so that's called Thursday in Israel. I mean, that's been fairly normal for the last many months. And one struck a house in Kiryat Shimona. Kiryat Shimona, as you know, is largely abandoned at this point. There's only about 5,000 people living there anymore, and everybody else is out, evacuated someplace else. But one of the houses there was destroyed, and there were some fires started by these missiles. They also are using FPV drones. I've got a couple of those here, and these are the ones where you wear the goggles and it's like you're flying inside the drone, and they're strapping them up with explosives and flying them into stuff. They're easier to navigate to their target, harder for the IDF to shoot down. The IDF is not going to use an Iron Dome against a drone that's flying 200, 300 feet above the ground. So they usually will make it to their target if their target's in range. And the drawback for Hezbollah with those is that they really can't, they don't have much of a payload. They can't carry a whole lot of explosives. So it makes a kaboom, but not much of one, and is unlikely to really destroy much with something like that. But they have been using more of those lately. In the West Bank, they have managed to eliminate almost 40 terrorists, find a whole bunch of weapons and Hamas paraphernalia, headquarters, stuff like that. There's obviously a large Hamas presence in Judea and Samaria, and that's something that the IDF is going to have to deal with once they get done in Gaza, a whole lot more than they are now, because Gaza is not the end of this thing. And they have also continued to catch, if you looked at my live the other day about the danger, I think I called the live, like, is this the third intifada? The danger of a wave of suicide attacks happening in Israel. And they have, at that time, they had found 5, and fortunately, none of them had gone off and killed anybody. But they have found more now. They found more guys Palestinians trying to smuggle themselves into Jerusalem through one of the checkpoints by, this is very cynical on their part, wearing a yellow ribbon for the return of the hostages, and and they had like a Israeli flag air freshener and stuff like that, trying to pretend that they were Israelis, wearing skull caps and all that. So they were captured before they could do anything. And again, the real concern here is just that the IDF has to be correct. They have to be right every time. They have to be on it every time. But the Hamas, the bad guys, only have to be right once. And that's the issue that they're dealing with here with these attempted infiltrations into Israel proper. I think it's just a matter of time before we see a SV bid or just a suicide bomber run into a crowded marketplace someplace and do his thing somewhere in Israel. I'm afraid that is the direction that this thing is going. In Gaza, they are continuing to eliminate bad guys left and right, 20, 30 a day. They are finding more tunnels. They're finding more weapons caches. And really all they have to do is look in a school or a mosque or a hospital, and they're almost sure to find something that's of military origin. It turns out the 65-foot deep tunnel shaft in which they found those 6 murdered hostages the other day was right under a child's room. You can see the entrance to the shaft, and the paint on the walls has like Mickey and Minnie and cartoon characters and stuff painted on it. It's just, that is their modus operandi. They have no problem at all with making use of things that normally would be off limits in a civilized conflict, if there is such a thing. Now, we have some breaking news that I'm going to talk about, but I'm not going to show. And that is that Hamas has released footage, as of just an hour ago, has released footage of Hersh Goldberg Paulin, one of the murdered hostages. And they released a message that they had him record just shortly before he was murdered. And I'll read you what it says, but I'm not going to go further than that, or I'll read you part of what it says. He says, I'm Hersh Goldberg Paulin. I was born in Berkeley, California, and I live in Jerusalem. I celebrated my 23rd birthday 4 days before I was kidnapped on October 7th from the party at Re'im. Since I arrived in Gaza, I've been living without medical help, almost without food and water. I don't remember when I last saw the sun or breathed fresh air. And then Hamas told him to address the U.S. president, and he just requested that the president work to promote a deal for the release of the hostages. And then he turned and spoke to his family members and said, Mom, Dad, Libby, and Orly, I love you and I miss you, and I think about you every day. I know you're doing everything to bring me back. Stay strong and do everything. I hope I will come home soon. Don't stop. And at the end of the video, they put up a caption that says, prisoner deal equals freedom and life. Military pressure equals death and failure. And so this is obviously meant to be psychological warfare. And the real unfortunate thing is just how well it's actually working on some segment of the Israeli people who are, out there chanting and burning things in the streets, calling on the Israeli government to accept whatever conditions they have to accept in order to get back some, not all, of the hostages. Now, Carolyn Glick was talking about this today, and she mentioned something that I haven't mentioned before, but it bears repeating. And that is that there are two competing groups of hostage families that have formed their own organizations to try to put pressure on the government one way or the other. One group, the smaller of the two groups, is the group who is telling the government, do whatever it takes to bring some of the hostages back. And this is, again, a very cynical, mad wish that if they get 12 hostages out, I'm just hoping and praying that my kid will be one of those hostages. And to heck with the rest of the hostages, I just want my hostage out. And so I want, even if it means losing the war, even if it means capitulating to Hamas, whatever it takes, I want my son out, and that's all. Now, it's hard to, condemn somebody for wanting to do whatever's necessary to get their kid out of a terrible situation. But there is actually a larger group of families of kidnapped Israelis who is pressuring the government not to accept any deal and to continue ramping up the military pressure until Hamas capitulates. And the reason for that is because these families, their sons are the military soldiers who were taken captive. And they know beyond a shadow of a doubt that if there is any kind of hostage deal, that their sons are not going to be the ones that are going to be released. Their sons are going to be they're going to be the very last ones in line to get released, and probably will not get released anyway. And so they are pressuring the government to go hard against Hamas and do whatever you have to do to bring them to their knees, and hopefully you'll be able to rescue some of the hostages alive. And again, understandable. I'm not about to criticize either set of those families because I'm not in their shoes. And I think if it was one of my kids in there, I would be doing everything I could to get into Gaza so I could just start burning things down until I found my kid. I'd be going crazy. I'm just saying I would be completely irrational and would have no problem destroying entire villages in Gaza if that's what it took for me to have a chance to get my kids out. I've always told them, your daddy doesn't just love you enough to die for you. Your daddy loves you enough to murder entire villages for you if that's what it takes. And so I'm not going to criticize the parents that are saying either thing. But I'm just saying that the larger group are the ones that are telling the government, don't stop, push harder, bring them to their knees until they voluntarily give up the hostages or we're able to rescue them. Now, there was another article that came out today, a study of some sort, that said that they believe that the vast majority of the hostages who are no longer living were actually killed early in the conflict, in the first month or two of their captivity, and not more recently. But obviously these 6 that were killed the other day were just recently murdered. And the other thing I noticed is that in the video that they released of Goldberg Paulin, the Hamas put out, when they put it out, here's a video of the murdered Hersh Goldberg Paulin. So they admitted that he was murdered, but they're probably meaning that he was murdered by the actions of the IDF and not by the actions of Hamas. Anyway, that is some breaking news because that literally just happened about an hour ago. And it's very likely that we will see similar videos from all the rest of these hostages, which tells us something. It tells us something. This was not a last minute thing where the Hamas guards heard the IDF getting closer and said, "Oh, we have to off these guys to keep them from being rescued." They were planning this for a long time, because it's going to take some time to stand them up and to make them give a statement. And I mean, that takes some advanced planning. They had this in mind for a long time. So these people were not planning to give back those hostages. They were planning to use them for psychological terror. And it's working. This is the thing that is so frustrating for so many people in Israel, is that ploy of using psychological warfare against the Israelis to divide them is working. And there are enough Israelis who are just naive enough to allow it to work on them, and not to say, no, you're not going to divide us. We're going to go even harder against you, and we'll leave nothing standing in Gaza if that's what it takes to get to end this and hopefully get our people back. But if we don't get our people back, we're just going to make sure that you will never have the capability to take any more. We're not going to leave you with two stones left upon each other until you release our hostages. That would be that'd be what they're doing. Somebody's asking, is there a chance some of it is AI? If it was AI, there are ways of figuring that out. There are other AI programs that can recognize a deep fake, an AI deep fake. So probably not. It's probably not. But suffice it to say, it looks like they were actually planning this to commit these heinous murders well before the IDF got close to the tunnel. But they intentionally made it look like, oh, it was the IDF's fault. They were, coming in, and since they were trying to rescue them, we murdered them. It's obvious. I mean, they're saying it. The Hamas is saying it, that if you continue to put military pressure on us, more of your hostages are going to die. And I think the answer to that is, well, of course, we know that. But that's not a good enough reason for us to stop. We are going to continue to come after that. And this is what Israel is saying, what Netanyahu is saying. He's saying, we are going to continue coming after you. We're going to continue to destroy what we have to destroy until you are ready to talk, Hamas. It's really sad to see that the Biden administration is actually working against Israel in this. I mean, trying to get them to come closer. Famously or infamously, President Biden was asked about the negotiation, or asked about these murders, and it was kind of an off-the-cuff remark, and he was kind of, I want to say that the journalist who asked him the question kind of poisoned the well a little bit, especially considering that Joe Biden is truly in the throes of dementia, and that's not something to make fun of. That's just something this guy should not be being grilled and things like that. It's just it's elder abuse at this point for doing that. But what I mean by poisoning the well is the journalist said, don't you think that Israel needs to do more to get to a hostage deal? And President Biden agreed with the journalist. And so then the scandal is that President Biden said it. Well, actually, the journalist said it and President Biden just agreed with it. But that's a small difference, but it is a difference. And on top of that, Kamala Harris recently, just I think today or yesterday, reiterated that Israel is the one who needs to come closer to Hamas in their demands. Well, their demands are that Israel lose the war. And Israel's just like, that's not going to happen. If we have to go it alone, we're going alone. Bibi Netanyahu stood up there. He looked like a weatherman the other day. He had a map of Gaza on the wall. He had a pointer. He had a stick. He was pointing to stuff on the wall. He really looked like a weatherman. But that speech was arguably one of the best speeches that he's ever given in his entire career, because he directly attacked, went on the attack against the Biden administration. He said, "What has changed since last Friday? What has changed? The only thing that has changed is that Hamas murdered 6 of our people in cold blood. And some people have the gall to ask the Israelis to compromise more." And he just said, this is not going to happen. We are not that kind of people. And, that is exactly what a leader ought to say, in my opinion. If you ask me, that's exactly what a leader ought to say. So I want to just stop again and mention to those of you that have just come on that everything that we raise on today's live is going to go help the One Tired Mama, one of our moderators. She contacted me the other day and said that her father had a massive heart attack and is in the hospital, can't work. Her mom's got some medical problems, can't work. And so of course, the bills keep coming and they can't make their bills. And so she didn't know what else to do but just come and ask our community. And I said, absolutely. This is the kind of thing that our community, that the hot zone is supposed to be about. When we find people in need, we can use the magic of the internet and let you reach through the camera and directly help somebody who's in need. Well, right now it's one of our own. It's One Tired Mama and her family. And so she started a Give, Send, Go campaign. It is right there on the top of the chat box. It's pinned to the top. It says, everyone send some love to One Tired Mama. Click on that. It'll take you to her Give, Send, Go campaign. And please give generously to that. If you want to go ahead and give here on YouTube through the super chat, super thanks, whatever, that's fine too. We'll pass that along to her as well. But she'll get more of it if you're giving it through her Give, Send, Go, because they don't take out as much as YouTube does. But I understand that some people can't work it out to give through Give, Send, Go, but they know how to do it this way, and that's fine. That's fine. But I would really love to see us absolutely meet their needs and be able to help her parents make it through this tough time, and know that there's a community of people out there who is praying for them and who loves them and will do what we can to help them. I just as an aside, when I did some research years ago on my family tree, we were able to trace the Holton family back to the early 1800s. And the Holton family comes from England. The word Holt means like a woods in England, in Old English. And so we were just like woods people, just people of the woods, nobody special. But what we found is that my great-great-great-grandfather, George Holton, worked in a mutual aid society in the Church of England. And so they didn't have things like health insurance back then. What they did was they went around and people joined these mutual aid societies, and they just did what there are some like this today. When somebody had a need, they went out to all the members of the society. Everybody pitched in a little bit, and they helped meet that need. These days you could go to Medishare, is something like that. It functions kind of like health insurance, but it's not health insurance. It's a group of like-minded Christians who pray for each other and who support each other hundreds of thousands of people as a part of the pool. And so they divide up the needs among the pool every month. And because they have so many, it's actually pretty stable. It's pretty steady, the amount of needs, because, just the law of large numbers. And they are able to meet people's needs without it actually being health insurance. We belonged to Medishare for a long time. And I just think that is a really cool way to do it. Rather than go through an insurance company and deal with all the inflated costs and all the craziness there, I think to me, it's just right. It just feels right that a group of people, that you should have a social network of people that you care for, that care for you. And when you have a need, you let them know about that need and they come around you and they meet that need and help you out. And that is exactly what we're trying to do for One Tired Mama. So thank you very much, all of you who are giving. And I know it means a lot to her and to her family. And let's really bless them. Let's really bless them. Connie and I are going to give some, and we'll give everything that you guys give here today on this live as well. But I do encourage you to just go to her site and give there, and then we don't have to be in the mix. It's because all of this is taxable income to me. And so there's, that to worry about. Okay, so now let's talk about the long form of Sinwar's secret plan. In this speech that Benjamin Netanyahu gave the other night, this is what, 2 nights ago, 3 nights ago maybe, whatever. Anyway, one of the things that he mentioned really kind of slid right by at first, but then people kind of went, wait, what? What did he say? And then went back to look at it and went, holy cow, look at this. So let me get over here to this one. The conference lasted for about 15 minutes, and it was a speech that was given to foreign media. And he pretty much astounded the audience because he claimed that Hamas was planning to smuggle out some of the hostages along with Yahya Sinwar. That Yahya Sinwar's plan for survival is to smuggle himself out of Gaza with some of the hostages and continue to use those hostages as human shields, essentially for the rest of their lives, to keep himself from being, liquidated. And one of the reasons why Benjamin Netanyahu has taken such a hard line on the whole issue of the Philadelphi corridor is because of this reason, because they cannot allow Yahya Sinwar to escape from Gaza and to, take the hostages with him, because then they'll never get them back. They'll never get those people back. Not only was this something that was garnered from interrogations of captured Hamas leaders that they've picked up inside Gaza, but it was also from some documents that they uncovered. They have, one of the things about this invasion of Gaza is that it has been a treasure trove of information for the IDF and the Mossad about the inner workings of some of these organizations, these militant organizations, these extremists. And so I'll tell you some more about what they found in addition to this, but some of the documents they found, actually, they were putting it in writing. Sinwar's plan is to smuggle himself and some of the hostages out of Gaza and to continue to use them as human shields forever. And then he wants to go to, Qatar or Yemen or someplace and live happily ever after. What a horrific scenario for those hostages. I mean, it's bad enough. Personally, if it was me and I was chained to a wall, around Yahya Sinwar for the last 10, 11 months, and then I had the choice of stay there and take your chances of the IDF maybe being able to rescue you, but probably not. You'll probably end up dying in the rescue attempt, or, get carried out through a tunnel and spend the rest of my life chained to Yahya Sinwar somewhere as his human, meat shield. Oh, heck no. Just shoot me now. Just end it. Yeah, what a nightmare that would be. So here you've got Yoav Gallant and others, left-wingers, who have been pushing for, including the Biden administration and Kamala Harris, pushing for Israel to give up the Philadelphia corridor, even though they told them not to go into Rafah. They literally were just adamant to Netanyahu. They sent Blinken over there like 3 times. Do not do operations in the Philadelphia corridor. Do not go into Rafah. You may not do this. They literally tried to tell him as if he was like a 12-year-old. You're not allowed to do this. And he did it anyway. And they have found 150 tunnels, many of which went across the border into Egypt. They have found hostages, dead and alive. They have killed hundreds of militants in there. And it's been a successful operation by and large. They have now paved a road all along the Philadelphia corridor so that they can get back and forth very quickly if they need to. And they are saying, we are going to stay here for the duration. That's our plan. We're not leaving. Now, I want to read for you this post off of Amir Tsarfati's channel on Telegram because I don't see where he got this. I don't think he wrote it. I think he copied and pasted it from somewhere. But so Netanyahu is considering withdrawing from the Philadelphia corridor only after the end of the war and the destruction of Hamas's capabilities, and handing the access over to the security responsibility of the United Arab Emirates. Between Jerusalem and Abu Dhabi, also between Netanyahu personally and the president of the UAE, Mohammed bin Zayed, there's a close and truth-based relations which prevail even in these tense days of the war. Against this background, Israel wants to see the UAE involved as much as possible in the Gaza Strip the day after the war because they get along. I mean, the UAE is friendly to Israel. And so I'm not sure where he got this, but the rationale is that the Emirati soldiers are less prone to corruption because they get paid more, and they have more discipline in their ranks, but they are Arab and they're Muslim, and so they're less likely to cause massive uprisings or attacks or anything like that along that Philadelphia corridor if they are the peacekeeping force that goes in there and takes over it. So it may be that Netanyahu is saying we're not going to leave the Philadelphia corridor. We're going to stay there for the duration, forever, to make sure that Egypt cannot continue to send contraband into Gaza. And that maybe he's saying that so that he will have a bargaining chip that's got more weight to it. If he's saying unequivocally, we are not leaving the Philadelphia corridor, and then he agrees to leave in the negotiations, that's a bigger deal for Hamas because it makes Hamas feel like they've actually gotten something for their negotiations. I don't know, but here's the more interesting piece. If Sinwar has this secret plan to get himself out, they cannot even talk about giving up that corridor until they smoke Yahya Sinwar. Until that guy takes a dirt nap, they can't even talk about it. Once Sinwar is out of the way, well and truly taking the room temperature challenge, then they've got some leverage. Then they've got some something to bargain with. And they have a much better chance of actually getting back some of their hostages. Now, the more frustrating thing about what the United States has been saying, or what Biden and Harris have been saying, is that in reality, there has not been a true ceasefire deal on the table that Hamas has agreed to. Hamas just keeps saying, we agreed to the plan that says Israel pulls all their troops out of Gaza and leaves completely, and then we'll talk. Well, that's not a plan anybody is proposing. And it's a total non-starter for Israel. But it could make sense once they get rid of Sinwar. If they smoke Sinwar, then you could say it might make sense in some world, in some universe, for UAE soldiers to come in and take over that job. Because if IDF, here's the problem. If IDF soldiers are there forever, then they're just a ready-made target. They're just like a burr under the saddle of the Palestinians who have to live in that area forever. There are always going to be IDF soldiers there for them to throw rocks at, even if that's all they have left to do. So that is a one plan, one idea. Bring in these UAE troops and let them take over. If it remains to be seen if they could be corrupted, which they probably could. But there was one other plan that actually, I think, has some merit to it. That is probably, if they want to make this a permanent, if they want to close that corridor permanently so that Egypt cannot allow contraband across that border through tunnels, all they have to do is build a canal. Just build a canal. It would be an undertaking, without a doubt, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility. It's not beyond Israel's ability to build a canal. You dig a 60-foot deep sea level canal along it's 14 kilometers. So it's 7 miles. So you get your earth moving equipment down there and you start digging, and you dig a sea level canal that's 60 feet deep all the way along. You turn that place into Venice down there. And they're not digging any more tunnels. It's just not gonna work. Won't work for them to dig any more tunnels. So that sounds like an actual plan. Now, Egypt's not going to like it because they are still hurting from the loss of revenue coming across that thing. And the world body's not going to like it because, oh gosh, they're tearing down people's houses and blah, 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 whatever. But Jonathan Conricus is the one that brought it up in an interview today. And he's a very serious individual and an expert. And he's like, I don't know why the IDF and the government of Israel decided to start in the north and then work their way south instead of starting in the south and working their way north. But he said, you're going to have to ask them. I at the time I thought it was crazy, and I still think it's crazy. But Conricus knows what he's talking about. I've spoken with him a few times. So building hey, we're going to do the Palestinians a favor, and we're going to build a canal that's, 100 feet wide, 60 feet deep, sea level, salt water, all along the southern border so that you can bring boats in down there and bring them into Rafah and offload cargo, whatever, stuff like that. And just start digging. That would be, I think, a permanent solution for this problem. A lot of people have said, well, can't they just blow up the tunnels? Well, yes, they have blown up the tunnels that they've found. The problem is when you blow up those tunnels, you normally don't blow up the whole thing. It's normally not feasible to collapse the entire length of the tunnel. They've tried. They've done a pretty good job at collapsing a lot of the tunnels. But if you leave any of that tunnel undestroyed, all they have to do is dig out the part you collapsed, and then they can start using it again. So if you're not there to watch them and to make sure they're not doing that, those tunnels will be in use before long. If there's one thing that the Palestinians know how to do, it's dig. So that would be a really solid option, if you ask me. Now, I saw some questions go by, so let's go ask some questions. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast, folks. 2,500 people online. Please hit the like button. And subscribing to the podcast, like, immediately tells the algorithm, go show this podcast to other people who are looking for information about Israel. And more people will find us. When I was coming home, in that 48-hour slog I just completed to get back to Panama, I was getting recognized in every airport I went to. I would just walk along and people would start going, hey, Chuck Holton, hey, we watch you all the time. This is great. And getting selfies with people and stuff. That's awesome. That makes me feel so good. If you're one of those people who said hello to me in the airport, thank you so much for doing that. It just makes me feel like, yes, there really are real people on the other side of this camera. And that's really cool. Somebody's saying, who is Sinwar? He's the leader of Hamas. Okay, so let's see here. Let's see. Oh, and again, One Tired Mama is, we're going to donate anything that we raise on this, on today's podcast to One Tired Mama's dad. His name is James. He recently had a heart attack, and looks like we've got her up over $2,500, almost $2,600 raised on the Give, Send, Go site, plus whatever we raised on the YouTube podcast here today. So that's awesome. Let's get that to $5,000. Let's get her $5,000 to help her dad pay his bills while he recovers from this heart attack. She's one of us. She's been a big help, and we're very grateful for her, and you should be too, because she keeps us troll free all the time and does it without any pay. Does it, just it's a thankless job. And so to say thanks, let's donate. Let's help her out. Okay, so question: why is Egypt not being held responsible for the supplies smuggled through their country to Hamas? Well, held responsible by whom? They're not part of NATO or something. I mean, Egypt is hurting economically already. And I think I don't know what the U.S. State Department, what the president and the cabinet are thinking, but if I was looking at this, I would be saying Egypt's punishment for all of that is that they helped this happen, and it's coming back on their own heads. They don't have anybody else to blame right now but themselves. Because, I mean, they can blame Hamas, but if they helped get those weapons into Gaza that were used on October 7th, which subsequently led to this wider conflict with the Houthis shutting down the Red Sea and not allowing ships to come through the Suez Canal, which is costing Egypt billions of dollars. It's crushing Egypt's economy. Tourism is down to a trickle. And those are their two biggest, sources of revenue. They punish themselves. Their actions led to where they are today. And if you punish them, then you become the one that they blame it on. Right now, the only person they can blame it on is themselves. So that would be my answer to that. Stephanie Ann Stockton says, do you think that the hostage issue could be God's wake-up call to realize everyone in sin is a hostage to the evil one and Messiah needs to be accepted? I don't think so. I don't disagree with the fact that people need to accept Jesus as the Messiah, obviously. There are a lot of people who watch our show who don't believe that, who are Jews that don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah, and I wish their eyes would be opened. That's a work of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit needs to open their eyes and needs to show them and call them to submit and to repent of their sins and to submit themselves to their Creator God. But to say that I think it's a stretch to say that this hostage issue is God's wake-up call on Israel. God often has judged Israel in the past for its sins, and perhaps October 7th was some sort of judgment. I don't know. I'm not God. But just the very fact that bad things happen doesn't necessarily mean that that's God's judgment. It could be God's blessing in a way that we don't understand. At least it has been in my life many times. And what I mean is the things that were the greatest tragedies in my life very often have, in the end, turned out to be things that made me better. And it certainly has brought Israel together. It has been a wake-up call as to their hubris, and has caused them to be humbled. And it's brought them together. It's brought unity to Israel, even though we see that there's still quite a bit of division, but not like there was before. And the sad thing is, the United States and the United Nations and the European Union are all meddling in Israel's political affairs to try to oust Bibi Netanyahu and try to implement an agenda that is much further to the left than where they are now. And they got enough problems as it is with leftists. They don't need, really, this is the United States going far beyond trying to say, hey, if we're going to give you weapons, we want to have a say in how you use those weapons. It's going far beyond that. That you could justify. But to say, we're giving you weapons, therefore, we have the right to meddle in your internal politics and to try to oust the leader who's not far enough left for us. Even though if Bibi Netanyahu was running as a politician in the United States, he'd be running as a Democrat. This guy is no conservative, really in most of his positions. But pretty incredible that Yoav Gallant is much further to the left than he is. And as some of my listeners have pointed out in emails to me, that there is a very big problem among the elite in Israel with communism. They have a big love affair with communism. And just like the elite in the United States do as well. So Israel's got enough problems with existential threats from without. What they don't need is frenemies who pretend to be their friends on one hand and try to bring down their system of government on the other hand. And unfortunately, that is what is happening all the time with the United States, and will only get worse if Kamala Harris ends up becoming our next president. Eminem, thank you so much. Very kind of you. How could Hamas build the tunnels without the IDF seeing them all this time? Well, Eminem, they did see them. It was not like they were surprised that there were tunnels. I remember going to Israel in 2017 on a tour and making some news while I was there. And I went down to the Gaza Strip and went right up to the border with the IDF in an IDF armored vehicle. And they took me to a bunker complex that they used to observe into Gaza. And they handed me a pair of binoculars and said, now look in there. You can see them building tunnels as we speak. And sure enough, there were concrete trucks coming and going out of a tunnel just right there in plain view in Deir al-Balah. And so it was, and in, I think, 2014, when they went into Gaza, was that Operation Cast Lead or whatever that was? When they went into Gaza, they found a whole bunch of tunnels crossing under the border into Egypt, and they flooded those tunnels. And then it was up to Egypt in the ceasefire deal to ensure that those tunnels didn't get used anymore. Well, obviously, Egypt has proven itself not to be a trustworthy partner in those kinds of things because they pump the tunnels out and they put them right back to use. There's like $40 million a week was going back and forth across that border in through those tunnels. And so those guys were obviously just making bank off of that, and they don't want to lose that income. And they don't have any scruples about what Hamas is doing with that. So there you go. All right, so let's see if there's any kind of question. Do we think the girls are Sinwar's shields? Probably. Probably the most valuable hostages are the ones who are handcuffed in a big circle around Sinwar at this point. Question, if a two-state solution is impossible, what can Israel do to finally end the fighting? They can hurt, well, I mean, the right answer to that is they hurt the enemy badly enough that the enemy says, we will unconditionally surrender. We give up. That is the only way to actually win. Now, you can stop the fighting by just taking your toys and going home, or as the United States did in Afghanistan, leaving your toys and going home. But that doesn't end the war. It just means you lose the war. So as far as the two-state solution being dead, this is something that the U.S. ambassador to Israel gave a speech the other day and, parroted all of the talking points of the Biden administration that the Israeli government is not doing enough to get to a ceasefire with Hamas, even though Hamas has not done anything. And the Israeli government's all at fault and blah, 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 all this kind of stuff, throwing him under the bus. And he was asked by a journalist, how can they possibly agree to a two-state solution when it would only be rewarding Hamas for October 7th? If you give them what they want after they attack you and brutally murder 1,200 of your civilians, that's like a trophy for them. You're giving them, you're showing them violence works. Violence is the answer. And the ambassador had the most convoluted, ridiculous answer I've ever heard to that question. He was like, oh, no, it's not. It's not a reward to Hamas to give them their own country, which is what they've been asking for. It's punishment for them. And it's like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, it's punishment for them because they don't want a two-state solution. They want a one-state solution with them at the helm and Jews all gone. And so giving them a two-state solution is thwarting their plans to destroy Israel. Well, if you can't, off the top of your head, see what's wrong with that line of reasoning, let me break it down for you. Hamas would gladly agree to a two-state solution, not because they would be happy with that, not because that's their ultimate goal, but because a two-state solution would give them the ability to build up forces, build up resources, build up armaments and ammunition, and make plans in order to implement the one-state solution that they do have in mind. So it's a stepping stone, yes, and that the pushing Israel and Hamas to accept a two-state solution, or Israel and the Palestinian Authority to accept a two-state solution when neither side wants it. Israel certainly doesn't want murderous, homicidal maniacs living right there on their border for all eternity, and especially living in their own country in a way where they could, build up forces and plan and execute another October 7th. They certainly don't want that. Hamas has turned down a two-state solution like 7 times. Well, the Palestinian Authority has, or the precursors, the PLO and those guys. So it's not just because the United States administration, the Biden administration, desperately wants some sort of peace deal so that they can campaign on that, they don't want it because they care about Israel. They don't want it because they care about the Palestinians. They only want it because they want to be able to use it to help them win the election. That's all. And so they're past saying, hey, we need to all come to the table and talk, and we need, Israel and Hamas, let's get together and let's find a way through this and bring an end to the war. They're past saying that. The Biden administration is now just calling up Bibi Netanyahu on the phone and saying, you are going to end this war. Like the speech that Kamala Harris gave today said basically that. They have to stop the war. Israel does. Israel has to stop. We're past the point of talking about it. It's time for Israel to stop this war. You have to just stop. And what she's saying is you have to lose so that I can win. And Israel is doing what it ought to do by saying, go pound sand, Kamala Harris. We're not going to stop. They're doing the right thing. Question okay, so we got that. Let's see if there's any more questions. Does the PA even have a plan for after the war? Sounds like they just want to call a temporary truce and strike again. Well, no, you're right. The Palestinian Authority is saying, oh yeah, we'll govern, we'll take over. All they want, you realize that the conditions that they have laid out for a ceasefire include not just the IDF pulling out of Gaza, not just the IDF leaving the Philadelphi corridor so that they can restart their contraband operations. It also includes Israel paying to rebuild Gaza. Okay. Did you know that? Did you know that was part of their demands? Oh yeah, by the way, Israel has to pay for all the damage that they've caused in Gaza. Like it was Israel's fault that this war happened. And I'd be like, nice try. Think again, buddy. So, that is a slap in the face. And Netanyahu was furious. You could tell the other night when he was talking to these reporters. He was absolutely furious at what the United States has been saying to him. Did Bibi refer to Gaza as a country in his speech? Well, he didn't refer to it as a country. I didn't notice that. If Israel stops, Hamas will just strengthen up and come back, right? Yes, that's right. Do you think there are elements in the U.S., in the military-industrial complex, that would like to see this conflict go on for a long time? Here's the thing, everybody likes to hate on the military-industrial complex. I get it. But really, I think that the military-industrial complex understands that there's always going to be another war. Like another bus comes along every day. So if this war ends, that's not such a big deal because there'll be another one. And so I don't think the military-industrial complex is full of these evil, we're going to go start wars all around the world just so we can make more money. No, they know that there's a market for the stuff that they make all the time. It's like me. That's almost like saying, oh, Chuck, you're a war correspondent, so that means you want this war to continue so that you'll continue to have a job? No, I don't want this war to continue. I want it to be over like right now, yesterday. And I'm not worried about losing my job as a war correspondent because as long as there are people in the world, there are going to be wars and conflicts and crises to cover. And so I would love it. I would love it if all the wars stopped and I had nothing else to report on but immigration or, politics or something else. That'd be fantastic. Nobody who has seen the horrors of war wants the wars to continue, even if they happen to get paid for being there. Soldiers get paid to be there. Soldiers all want to go home. right? So I think it's a, it's a straw man kind of to say, oh, it's only just because the military industrial complex they want wars to happen so they can make more money. They want these wars to go on. I don't think so. I don't think they need to think that, because they understand that there'll be another one that comes along tomorrow. And I'm not, condemning you or anything for asking the question, but I'm just saying that's my belief. Hamas will never agree to recognize Israel. That would be the thing they would have to do. And if they recognize Israel, then they lose. Yeah. Well, so you just have to hurt them so bad that they give up. And we did it in World War II. We did it in the first Gulf War. The United States hurt Iraq badly enough that they agreed to an unconditional surrender. And that's probably the last time that's happened in a major war anywhere. An unconditional surrender says, you win, we lose, please stop killing us, and we'll do whatever you ask in order to make this stop. And that is the only way to actually win a war. And so if they plan on winning, that's what they're going to have to do. Anything else is actually a loss. That's all there is to it. Okay, so do you think Biden and Harris knew the hostages were in the Gaza area? Well, of course they're in Gaza, but you probably mean Rafah. They probably did know, but they also just, everything that they're doing is political and it's theater. They're not actually, when they're speaking to Benjamin Netanyahu, they're not speaking to the Israelis. They're speaking to their own base. They're speaking to their own voters. When they say there has to be an end to this war, they're speaking to the left of their base. So yes, they knew there were hostages down there. I mean, I knew there were hostages down there. And they obviously have access to a lot more information than I do. So yeah, I mean, I just don't think they cared. Like I said, they only care about ending the war. So they didn't want another major operation taking place because they're like, we got an election to win. So just stop fighting. And that's how they think that a war is supposed to end. You just stop. But it doesn't. If the enemy's not done fighting, then you stopping is you losing. That's all there is to it. Okay? Gaza's a little city within Israel. Why would you give it its own state after the murder? Well, they're not talking, Mr. Commento, they're not talking about making Gaza a state or a country. They're talking about giving the Palestinians their own country, which would be one of the strangest countries on planet Earth, because it would be Judea, Samaria, and the Hebron, which are populated by 500,000 Jews that live in there. And so they'd have to be kicked out. And then there's this other piece of their country called Gaza that's separated from their country. So, I mean, they wouldn't be the only country that's separated into a couple pieces. Azerbaijan is like that. The exclave of Nakhichevan is a part of Azerbaijan that is separated by a little strip of Armenia. That's one of the reasons why Azerbaijan keeps threatening Armenia, because they want to connect that. Armenia had the Nagorno-Karabakh district up until September of last year, which they called Artsakh, and they considered it to be part of Armenia. The Artsakis actually didn't. The Artsakis considered it to be its own country that was aligned with Armenia. But a lot of Armenians saw it as a part of Armenia proper. But it was a 4-hour drive from the border of Armenia through Azerbaijan, surrounded by Azerbaijan. These are vagaries of the way that geography is just ends up because of usually dictatorships. So Nakhichevan and the Nagorno-Karabakh district came to be because Stalin was just sort of drunk and drawing lines on a map and saying, well, we're going to put these people over here and this is going to be part of that. We're going to, I mean, it was really made no sense at all. But, and that's the reason for a lot of the fighting and division that we see in Israel and in Armenia and Azerbaijan today. And there probably are other countries that are like that as well. Okay? So let's see. I'm going backwards. They'll attack again. Are you voting for President Trump, Chuck? I'm not going to vote for Biden or for Kamala Harris. I'm going to vote for the person who is the most likely to respect life. Right now, the only person in the race that qualifies in that regard is Donald Trump, even though I would love it if he would be even more pro-life than he is. But that, for me, is like the deal breaker when it comes to voting. If you could bring yourself to vote for a candidate who is promising you all kinds of economic benefits, but oh, by the way, has no problem at all with a woman being able to murder her child in the womb or sometimes even out of it, then yeah, I don't know how you can morally make that case. I don't know how you can look yourself in the mirror and say, well, but he's great on he's going to be better on the, or she is going to be better on the economy. Well, yeah, but they're murdering babies over here. That to me is a deal breaker. That's all. Call me a one-issue voter, but that's all. And Trump is not near close enough to being fully pro-life for me. But he's the closest we've got at this point. Why does Israel not just keep the Gaza Strip for Israel and move the Palestinians out? Rick, there are a lot of people who want that to happen. There are a lot of people in Israel who believe that's Israel. We should have never left in 2005 and kicked all those poor Israelis who built their homes there. It was much safer overall when there were Israelis living in the Gaza Strip and the IDF was there to protect them. And we should go back to that. That's what they believe. There are a lot of people in Israel who believe that. So now, is that going to happen? Not real likely because of this whole problem that the world is already, down on Israel, and it would make it worse for them. Why is Egypt and all the other countries letting the Houthis by with shutting down sea traffic? Yeah, well, the United States and the UK and a couple other small countries are supposed to be taking care of the Houthis so that shipping can resume. But the United States has failed miserably at that mission. And they've managed to shoot down a few Houthi missiles and rockets and drones that were shot at their own ships. But the Houthis are they're terrorizing the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden and the Bab el-Mandab Straits and all that. They're just terrorizing that area. And what does the U.S. do? Oh, they drop a bomb on an empty warehouse in Yemen or something and call it a day. I think that the United States Navy, being the most powerful Navy on planet Earth, could easily stop this problem inside of about 15 minutes if they wanted to. But they are not being allowed to do so by the Biden administration. The Biden administration, the Democrats, the left in general, are extremely feckless when it comes to the use of military power. They don't understand it. They don't like it. They don't like the military. They don't like anything about it. There are a bunch of, the people that are running the show in the White House are a bunch of aging hippies. And they are peaceniks. And they don't understand the projection of military will or of a national will by the means of the use of military force. They don't understand that. And so they think the way you win a war is by just stopping and walking away. That's the way you lose a war. They think that the way you deter the Houthis is by, a proportional use of violence. So the Houthis fire one missile, we fire one missile. Well, that's not the way to win. That's the way to have a perpetual war forever, until you just run out of money and then you lose. The way that you win is you hurt that enemy so badly that they beg you to stop hurting them. And the people that are running the show right now just don't understand that. And so they won't allow the Navy to do what it easily could do if they took the shackles off. But they're not. All right, folks, I got to get going. But just one more time before I do, thank you very much for watching. Some of you have just come on recently, so I wanted to mention the pinned chat up there at the top of the chat box that says, everyone send some love to One Tired Mama. One Tired Mama is our tireless moderator who has been helping for months with just keeping the trolls away on these things. And her dad had a massive heart attack the other day and is in pretty bad shape. And so he can't work, and her mom's got some health problems. She can't work. And so their bills are piling up, and they really need some help. And so we've got 3,000 people online right now. If everybody gave $10, if everybody that's online right now just gave $10, we'd have over $30,000 raised. And so, I realize, look, many of you are hurting as well. Many of you just can't afford even $1. You're having a hard time making your own bills, and that's fine. And don't feel bad if you're just unable. But what I do know is that Americans are the most charitable people group on planet Earth, bar none, by an order of magnitude. There's no other country on planet Earth that gives more money to charity than the people in the United States. There's no other people group in the United States than American Christians who give more money, who donate their time more to important causes, to even give more blood than anybody else does. We are the most charitable people on planet Earth. And when we're given a need, we do what we can to meet that need. Well, one of our own is hurting. And so everything that we've raised on this live tonight is going to go to One Tired Mama. But I would encourage you not to give it to me. Just go to that thing at the top there, that pinned chat at the top that says, everyone send some love to One Tired Mama, and click on that and go give over at Give, Send, Go. That way I don't get any of it. I don't have to mess with it. I don't have to figure out how much to send to One Tired Mama. I'm going to do that. And we've already sent some, even before this podcast today. But we're going to try to just absolutely meet their needs far bigger than they could ever even ask or think. Because that's what God does. And God uses people like us and blesses us to be able to bless others. And so if you've been blessed and you want to have the fun that we have in giving to other people and helping other people in their time of need, because it is fun. It's the most fun I've ever had, being able to help other people. Then please generously give to One Tired Mama tonight to help her dad. And you can go to that thing and I'm not keeping any of it. We're just giving it all to them to try to help her dad, James, in this difficult time. And wouldn't it be great to hear from them that they were able to make it specifically because of just a bunch of strangers that come together on a daily basis and watch these lives to be able to help one of our own. That's just a really cool thing. So I just went over and looked, and I think we've raised a couple $1,000s already over on the Give, Send, Go page. We're over 3,000 total of the 10,000 goal that she set. And that's not including whatever people had given on the YouTube channel. So that's pretty awesome. So, so what's she saying? Her dad has 8 meds to take and a whole list of other things they weren't prepared for. Yeah, look, medical problems are going to hit us all. And sometimes they come at the worst possible time. And there are things that you thought you had covered that just aren't covered. So I know we have people, because they reach out to me. who watch these podcasts on a regular basis who could easily, without even thinking about it, just write a check for $10,000. There are people that own business owners and things like that who have done things like that for us in the past where there's been a specific need and they've just gone boom and they've just hammered it. But I think even better is when we all just come together and we just all pitch in $10 or $20 or $50 or whatever. And all of us help, because then it's not just one guy that's getting all the blessing from giving. It's all of us that are coming together and getting the blessing from giving. So before we go, I got to go because I've got a dinner with my wife tonight because I haven't seen her in a month. So thank you very much, Paul, for that. The last thing I want to do before we leave is I want to pray, and specifically pray for James' healing tonight. So if you would, if you don't have the ability right now to give money, that's okay. Prayer is the most that we can do, always. Always. Prayer is more important than money. And so you can pray. Even if you're not used to it, even if it makes you feel awkward, that's okay. Just bow your head with me, close your eyes, and just agree with what I'm about to say. Okay? And so let's pray. Lord God, I just pray right now for James, for Clarissa's dad. You know how much he means to her, that he's just a rock in their family. And you know exactly what he needs to the penny to pay for his medical bills, to pay for all of the additional expenses that aren't covered, like rent and food and things like that. And so, Lord, I just pray that you would bring people alongside them to meet those needs in a way that just blows them away. Because you promise us, Lord, that you can provide for us greater than we can even ask or imagine or think. And I pray that you would do that right now for James. I pray that you would heal his heart. I pray that you would touch him and heal his illness, and that he'd get better very, very quickly and be up and around and be able to go back to work and continue to provide for his wife and his family. Lord, we know that you are the great physician and you have the power to do that. I pray that through this process, that James and his wife and Clarissa and their whole family, that their faith would grow stronger because they see your provision, your love coming through our hands, through us, as we provide for them. And so, Lord, I just pray that you would motivate the people who hear my voice, who watch this podcast, to take part in this, to join you in what you're doing to bless James and his family. And I pray these things in your holy name. Amen. Okay, folks, thank you very much for all that you're doing and for all that you've done. I can't even tell you what it means to me that so many of you have generously given to help. It means more than if you gave it to me. Because I just love to see people coming together and helping others in need, so that, and you know why? Because I spend my entire career seeing people who are hurting, who are having their worst day, who are just have had their lives destroyed. And the most frustrating thing about my job is that I can't fix it. There's just too much. There's too much pain in this world. I just can't fix it all. But you can fix it. I can tell the world, and the world has enough resources to make a difference. And that is what gives my job meaning. That's what keeps me going. That's what makes me able to stand seeing so much hardship and death and mayhem and destruction, is that I know that if I tell you the story, you can do something about it. You can help me help them. And that means everything to me. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. God bless you. All right. We'll see you again shortly. See you on the flip side, folks. God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.